Understanding the potential impact of nuclear fallout is crucial for preparedness. Fallout scenarios resulting from either nuclear warfare or accidents at nuclear facilities present severe hazards to human health and the environment. These scenarios involve the release of radioactive particles into the atmosphere, which subsequently settle on the ground, contaminating everything they touch. Given the catastrophic potential of such events, it's imperative to comprehend which regions are less ideal for fallout survival in order to enhance preparedness and response strategies. Among the various factors that determine the survivability in fallout scenarios, population density stands out as a significant concern. Highly populated areas are more challenging to evacuate and manage during emergencies. The sheer number of people needing assistance can overwhelm emergency services, making it difficult to provide timely aid and maintain order. Moreover, densely populated regions often have more infrastructure that could be damaged or become unusable, complicating evacuation routes, access to essential services. Another critical factor is the presence of nuclear facilities and potential targets. States hosting numerous nuclear power plants or military installations are inherently at higher risk during fallout events. Nuclear power plants, while generally safe under normal conditions, pose a severe threat if they are compromised. Military targets, including missile silos and command centers, are prime targets in the event of a conflict, increasing the likelihood of fallout in their vicinity. Thus, states with a high concentration of these facilities are particularly precarious during such crises. The availability of shelters and emergency services is another vital criterion. States with limited access to fallout shelters or inadequate emergency preparedness programs expose their residents to greater risks. Effective fallout shelters can significantly reduce radiation exposure, but their availability varies widely states. Additionally, the efficiency and readiness of emergency services to respond in such situations are paramount in minimizing casualties and providing necessary aid. Geography and climate also influence fallout survivability. Certain geographic features, like mountain ranges and large bodies of water, can act as natural barriers, potentially reducing the spread of radioactive materials. Conversely, flat terrains may allow for wider dispersal of fallout. Climate conditions, such as prevailing winds and rainfall patterns, can further affect the distribution and concentration of radioactive particles, impacting which areas become more hazardous. Infrastructure resilience is crucial for maintaining essential services during and after fallout events. States with robust infrastructure, including well-maintained roads, bridges, and utilities, are better positioned to manage the aftermath of such crises. The ability to quickly restore power, water, and communication systems can significantly enhance recovery efforts and reduce the long-term effects of fallout. Lastly, resource availability, including food, water, and medical supplies, is essential for survival in the wake of a fallout event. States that lack sufficient local resources or have supply chains easily disrupted by such incidents face greater challenges in sustaining their populations. Ensuring an adequate stockpile of essential resources and having contingency plans for resupply is vital for managing fallout scenarios effectively. So without any further ado, let's cover the top 6 states in the U.S. that are most likely to struggle with fallout survival based on these criteria. 6. Pennsylvania stands out as one of the worst states to be in when a fallout occurs, given its historical context, population density, and infrastructure vulnerabilities. The state's history with nuclear incidents is notably marked by the infamous 3 Mile Island accident in 1979. This partial meltdown remains one of those significant events in U.S. nuclear history, highlighting the potential risks associated with nuclear energy facilities. Although safety measures have improved since then, the shadow of this incident looms large, reminding residents and authorities alike of the catastrophic possibilities. The high population density in certain regions of Pennsylvania further exacerbates the state's vulnerability in a fallout scenario. Cities like Philadelphia and Pittsburgh are densely populated urban centers, making evacuation efforts extremely challenging in the event of a nuclear fallout. The sheer number of people needing to relocate or seek shelter would overwhelm local emergency services and resources. The congestion in these urban areas would impede swift evacuations and make it difficult to provide timely medical care and other essential services to those affected by radiation exposure. Infrastructure vulnerabilities also play a significant role in Pennsylvania's susceptibility to fallout scenarios. The state's aging infrastructure, including its roads, bridges, and utilities, could struggle to withstand the demands of a sudden and extensive fallout emergency. Many of Pennsylvania's transportation networks are already under strain, and a fallout event would likely exacerbate these issues, creating bottlenecks and hindering the distribution of aid and resources. Additionally, older buildings may not offer adequate protection against radiation, further increasing the risk to residents. Limited immediate resources for dealing with fallout scenarios pose another critical challenge. While Pennsylvania has emergency management plans in place, the scale of preparation required for a nuclear fallout event can exceed the capacity of state and local agencies. During such a crisis, there would be an urgent need for medical supplies, food, clean water, and radiation shelters. However, current stockpiles and logistical plans may not suffice to meet the rapid and vast demands that would arise. This shortfall could lead to delays in receiving essential aid, compounding the health risks and hardship faced by the state's residents. Furthermore, Pennsylvania's geographical features contribute to its challenges in a fallout situation. The state's varied terrain, including mountains, rivers, and forests, while scenic, can hinder the movement of people and resources. Natural barriers may complicate evacuation routes and limit access to remote areas, leaving some communities more isolated and vulnerable. Additionally, prevailing weather patterns could influence the spread of radioactive particles, potentially affecting wide swaths of the state, depending on wind directions and precipitation. Given these combined factors, historical nuclear incidents, high population density, infrastructure weaknesses, and limited immediate resources, Pennsylvania represents a particularly precarious state during a fallout scenario. The lessons from the 3 Mile Island incident underscore the importance of robust preparedness and resilient infrastructure. Enhancing emergency response capabilities, modernizing infrastructure, and ensuring adequate resource stockpiles are imperative steps for improving the state's readiness for such emergencies. 5. Illinois is another state that ranks high on the list of the worst places to be during a fallout event. One of the key factors contributing to its vulnerability is the presence of a significant number of nuclear power plants. Illinois boasts the highest number of nuclear reactors in the United States, with 11 reactors spread across 6 different sites. While these facilities are generally safe under normal conditions, they represent potential hazards in the event of a nuclear incident or targeted attack. The concentration of nuclear power plants increases the risk of radioactive contamination, making Illinois particularly susceptible to fallout scenarios. In addition to the prevalence of nuclear facilities, Illinois faces challenges due to its dense population, especially in and around Chicago. As the 3rd largest city in the nation, Chicago's metropolitan area houses millions of residents in a relatively confined space. During a fallout event, the high population density would complicate evacuation procedures and strain emergency services. The logistical nightmare of moving such a large number of people out of harm's way quickly underscores the limitations of current preparedness plans. Moreover, providing adequate shelter, food, medical care, and radiation protection to so many individuals simultaneously would be an enormous undertaking. The city's dense infrastructure also poses significant threats and accessibility issues during emergencies. Chicago's extensive network of highways, railways, and public transportation, while vital for daily commutes and commerce, could become congested and gridlocked in the event of a mass evacuation. The aging infrastructure, including roads, bridges, and tunnels, might not withstand the sudden increase in usage and stress, potentially leading to breakdowns and delays. These delays would not only hinder the evacuation efforts, but also impede the delivery of crucial supplies and emergency services to affected areas. Furthermore, the state's broader infrastructure vulnerabilities extend beyond the urban centers. Rural and suburban areas, which may serve as evacuation destinations, often lack the necessary facilities and resources to handle large influxes of displaced persons. The disparity in emergency preparedness between urban and rural regions can create additional complications as resource allocation becomes a critical issue. Ensuring that all areas are adequately prepared for fallout scenarios requires significant investment and coordination, which may not currently be in place. Illinois also faces unique geographical challenges. The state's flat terrain offers little natural protection against the spread of radioactive particles. Wind patterns could carry fallout over large distances, potentially affecting both urban and rural areas alike. The Great Lyell, a vital water source, could also become contaminated, posing long-term environmental and health risks. The combination of flat terrain and significant water bodies adds another layer of complexity to managing fallout scenarios effectively. Given these factors, the heavy presence of nuclear power plants, the dense population of Chicago, and infrastructure vulnerabilities, Illinois emerges as a highly vulnerable state during a fallout event. The sheer scale of the population at risk and the potential for widespread contamination from nuclear facilities highlight the need for comprehensive emergency preparedness and robust infrastructure resilience, improving evacuation plans, enhancing public awareness, and increasing investment in emergency resources are crucial steps toward mitigating the risks. 4. Texas is another state that faces significant challenges in the event of a fallout, making it one of the worst places to be during such a scenario. The state's proximity to multiple nuclear facilities is a primary concern. Texas is home to several nuclear power plants, including the South Texas Project near Bay City and the Comanche Peak Nuclear Power Plant near Glen Rose. These plants, while crucial for energy production, represent potential targets in both accidents and attacks, which could lead to severe radioactive contamination. The risk posed by these facilities underscores the need for rigorous safety measures and emergency preparedness strategies. Adding to the state's vulnerability is the presence of several high population centers, most notably Houston and Dallas. These metropolitan areas are among the largest and most densely populated in the country. In the event of a nuclear fallout, the sheer number of residents in these cities would pose significant challenges for evacuation and sheltering. Managing such large populations in a crisis requires exceptional coordination and resources, both of which could be strained under the pressure of an emergency situation. The dense urban environments also increase the risk of radiation exposure due to the density of buildings and infrastructure that might impede swift movement out of the affected areas. Furthermore, Texas faces unique geographical challenges that complicate fallout management. The state's vast size means that many areas are remote and have limited access to supplies and emergency services. In regions where towns are spread far apart, ensuring timely delivery of food, water, medical supplies, and radiation protection can be extremely difficult. This remoteness can leave many communities isolated and vulnerable, with little immediate support in the event of a fallout. Additionally, the sheer expanse of the state complicates evacuation logistics, as moving large numbers of people over such distances poses a significant challenge. The state's geography also includes diverse landscapes, from coastal areas to arid deserts. Coastal regions, such as those around Houston, face the added risk of hurricanes, which can further strain emergency resources and complicate evacuation efforts. On the other hand, arid regions may suffer from scarcity of water and other critical resources necessary for survival in post-fallout conditions. These geographic disparities necessitate tailored emergency response plans that address the specific needs and challenges of different areas within the state. Infrastructure resilience is another concern in Texas. While the state has robust infrastructure in its urban centers, many rural areas lack the same level of development. This disparity can result in uneven distribution of aid and hinder effective response efforts. Moreover, Texas's infrastructure has been tested by recent natural disasters such as hurricanes and severe winter storms, revealing vulnerabilities that could be exacerbated during a nuclear fallout event. Ensuring that all regions have resilient infrastructure capable of withstanding such crises is essential for minimizing the impact on residents. Given these factors, proximity to nuclear facilities, high population centers, and geographical challenges, Texas emerges as a particularly challenging state in the context of a nuclear fallout. The combination of potential radiation sources, dense urban populations, and vast areas with limited access to resources creates a complex landscape for emergency planning and response. Enhancing infrastructure resilience, improving emergency preparedness, and ensuring equitable distribution of resources across urban and rural areas are critical steps for mitigating these risks. 3, Florida is particularly vulnerable in the event of a nuclear fallout, making it one of the worst states to be in during such a crisis. One of the primary concerns for Florida is its coastal location, which significantly increases the risks associated with radiation spread via water. The state's extensive coastline and proximity to the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf of Mexico mean that radioactive particles could easily contaminate large bodies of water. This contamination poses long-term environmental and health risks, affecting not only marine life, but also the millions of people who rely on these water sources for drinking, fishing, and recreation. The potential for hurricanes and tropical storms to exacerbate the spread of radioactive materials further complicates the situation, as these natural disasters can carry contaminants over large distances and into new areas. Florida's high population density is another critical factor that heightens its vulnerability during a fallout event. Cities like Miami, Orlando, and Tampa are densely populated urban centers where managing a large-scale evacuation would be a logistical nightmare. The state's narrow landmass, coupled with limited evacuation routes, makes it difficult to move large populations away from affected areas quickly. Traffic congestion and bottlenecks on major highways would likely impede evacuation efforts, leaving many residents exposed to radiation for prolonged periods. The challenge of providing adequate shelter, food, medical care, and radiation protection for millions of residents simultaneously would strain emergency services and resources to their breaking point. The state's infrastructure also presents significant vulnerabilities in the face of both natural disasters and the impact of a nuclear fallout. Florida is already prone to hurricanes, which frequently test the resilience of its infrastructure. Roads, bridges, power lines, and buildings are often damaged or destroyed by these powerful storms, leaving communities without essential services for extended periods. In the event of a nuclear fallout, the additional strain on already compromised infrastructure could lead to catastrophic failures. Power outages could disrupt communication and hamper the delivery of emergency services, while damaged roads and bridges could isolate communities and delay the distribution of critical supplies. Moreover, Florida's geography includes numerous low-lying areas subject to flooding, which can exacerbate the impact of radioactive contamination. Floodwaters can spread radioactive particles over a wider area, increasing the scope of the affected region and complicating cleanup and recovery efforts. The state's reliance on a tourism-driven economy also means that fallout events could have severe economic repercussions, as both residents and visitors might be deterred by the long-term health risks posed by radiation exposure. Given these factors, coastal location, high population density, and vulnerable infrastructure, Florida is particularly ill-equipped to handle a fallout scenario effectively. The combination of potential radiation spread via water, challenges in evacuating densely populated areas, and infrastructure susceptible to natural disasters creates a precarious situation for residents. Enhancing emergency preparedness plans, investing in resilient infrastructure, and developing robust evacuation strategies are essential steps to mitigate the risks and improve the state's readiness for such events. California emerges as one of the states least suited for survival during a nuclear fallout, primarily due to its combination of major cities, military bases, earthquake-prone regions, and logistical challenges posed by its high population. These factors collectively create a complex and precarious environment in the face of such a catastrophic event. The presence of major cities such as Los Angeles, San Francisco, and San Diego significantly heightens California's vulnerability during a fallout scenario. These metropolitan areas are not only densely populated, but also serve as economic and cultural hubs, making them prime targets in any conflict involving nuclear weapons. Moreover, the sheer number of people residing in these urban centers presents immense challenges in terms of evacuation and sheltering. The dense infrastructure in these cities could impede swift evacuation, leaving residents exposed to harmful radiation for extended periods. Providing adequate resources, including food, water, medical care, and radiation protection for millions of people simultaneously would strain emergency services and resources to their limits. In addition to its major cities, California is home to several key military bases such as Naval Base San Diego and Edwards Air Force Base. These installations are strategic assets that could potentially be targeted in a nuclear conflict, increasing the risk of fallout. The close proximity of these military sites to civilian populations further complicates the state's risk profile. In the event of an attack, the resultant radioactive contamination could spread quickly to nearby communities, exacerbating the overall impact and challenging containment and cleanup efforts. California's susceptibility to earthquakes also poses significant risk in a fallout scenario. The state is crisscrossed by numerous fault lines, including the infamous San Andreas Fault, making it one of the most seismically active regions in the world. Earthquakes can compromise the structural integrity of buildings, roads, and bridges, which are crucial for effective evacuation and emergency response. In the event of a nuclear fallout, any simultaneous seismic activity could severely hamper efforts to move people to safety and deliver essential supplies. Additionally, pre-existing structural damage from earthquakes could increase the likelihood of radiation exposure, as compromised buildings may offer insufficient protection against radioactive particles. High population density further complicates California's ability to manage a fallout scenario effectively. With nearly 40 million residents, the state has one of the largest and most diverse populations in the country. Coordinating a large-scale evacuation or shelter-in-place order would be an enormous logistical challenge. Traffic congestion on the state's extensive but often overburdened highway system could result in significant delays, leaving many residents vulnerable. Moreover, ensuring equitable access to emergency resources across such a vast and varied population would require exceptional planning and coordination. The combination of major cities, strategic military targets, earthquake risks, and high population density makes California particularly ill-equipped to handle a nuclear fallout. Addressing these vulnerabilities requires comprehensive emergency preparedness plans that account for the unique challenges posed by each of these factors. Strengthening infrastructure resilience, improving earthquake-proof building standards, and developing robust evacuation strategies are essential steps to mitigate the risks and improve the state's readiness for such events. 1. New York stands as the top contender for the worst state to be in during a nuclear fallout, primarily due to its high population density, multiple potential nuclear targets, and limited access to natural resources, coupled with high vulnerability in infrastructure. These factors create a perilous scenario where managing the impact of a nuclear fallout becomes extraordinarily challenging. The state's high population density, particularly in New York City, poses a significant threat during a fallout event. With over 8 million residents in the city alone and millions more in surrounding suburbs, New York represents one of the most densely populated areas in the United States. This density complicates evacuation efforts enormously. The intricate network of streets and highways can quickly become congested, making swift movement out of the city nearly impossible. Moreover, the vertical nature of the city, with countless high-rise buildings, accentuates the difficulties in evacuating large numbers of people efficiently. Providing adequate shelter, food, medical care, and radiation protection to such a vast population would stretch emergency services beyond their limits, resulting in delays and potentially greater exposure to harmful radiation.